We're good to go. It's 6:32, and this is Monday, August 3rd, and is the City of Brainerd City Council Safety and Public Works Committee. We've got 6 items on the agenda. Anything we need to add, Mr. Engineer?
Yes, if I could add one item, that's our RFP for the water tower historic structure report.
Oh, goodness. I'm not sure I want to hear that.
Okay.
Can that be bathroom break too as well? All right, we'll add that as item number 7. Item number 1 is the sewer backup information regarding we talked about. Go ahead, Mr. Engineer. Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, just kind of as I mentioned in the cover sheet, 2 weeks ago we had some discussion about trying to do some public information on our sanitary sewer system and what people should do with backups. And at the time I was fairly certain that we had some information on our website, but I didn't want to say that because I wasn't sure if it was still up there or not.
Sure.
But the next morning I did take a look, and what I attached to the packet is the information that we do have on our website. It's a little difficult to navigate to it, so we're going to work on that a little bit and see if we can make that a little easier navigation for people. But it is fairly detailed in terms of what people should do if they are experiencing a backup, and the first thing is to contact us or BPU after hours. We will check it, and if it is in our system, we'll take care of it. If it's not in our system, we'll notify them that they need to arrange a plumber. Likewise, it's got a lot of information on other maintenance, how to prevent backups, other requirements associated with our sewer system, the type of maintenance that we provide on the system, and things they should be aware of. So, as I mentioned also, we are putting together a contact list of sewer cleaning services and plumbers, and we'll be distributing some information to them just to make sure that when they get a call that they're properly vetting the situation and making us aware of it too, so we can check our system.
Any questions? I'm glad you're working on trying to make it. The thing is, of course, everything on our website has great value. It needs to be at the forefront.
Yes,
of
exactly.
The public, and seriously, it's all true, especially when it's your sewer that's backed up. I would never call the city of Brainerd. I would never expect to do that. However, I think with a little bit of knowledge and cooperation with the contractors, that will go a long way. I think as much as anything, I wouldn't look, if my sewer backed up, I wouldn't go to the city's website. I'd call a plumber. So there's lots of good ones in the area. But I appreciate that, Jeff.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll just, I learned about this for the first time. So call the city. What? That's like saying I flipped the light switch and it didn't light. So rather than go get a bulb, I called BPU. I mean, that's kind of the same line. and I know that's funny when I say it like that, but it's kind of the same thing. Thank you very much, Mr. Engineer. Item number 2 is the public transit grant application resolution. This is submitted by our transit coordinator, Andy Stone. Presented by Jeff Hulsether. Anything that this seems pretty straightforward, but anything you want to add to the
No, it's very straightforward.
draft
It's our
resolution?
annual resolution that authorizes execution of the agreement with MnDOT. So,
And just for the public, this is the city agrees to pay 15%, is that correct, of the total operating cost?
yes.
And 20% of the capital cost?
Correct.
Same as it's been. Any questions? Is there a motion to recommend to council?
So moved.
Motion by Borkenhagen, second by Hilgard. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the chip seal project notifications, and I know this is regarding some phone calls we had regarding the most recent chip seal project. Mr. Engineer, anything that you want to explain or bring forth that clarifies anything in the agenda request?
Kind of, towards the recommended or action, I kind of mentioned that the striping contractor was going to be in town on Thursday, and that we had coordinated Friday morning to do our striping downtown, and contractor was all good with that. Well, so we did notices, we banned parking, got everything ready, and then the contractor did not send his line crew, or that particular crew, up on Thursday. He directed them somewhere else. So that didn't coordinate very well either. So we had a couple of busts in that chip seal project. I think we're just going to have to. I think the notifications worked out that we had notifications that we sent out. Worked out okay for Friday. Just that the work didn't occur. We are going to try to. That contractor is now going to be limited to Wednesday mornings to get in there to do the striping work. That's when we already banned parking for downtown street sweeping. So that's when we're going to get that work done. But I think going forward, if we're dealing in area like this where, even though we mailed notices to property owners, that message was not getting to the tenants. So in those types of areas, we'll try to do some flyers or notifications other than just direct mail, so we can try to get the word out.
Any questions for the engineer? I mean, when I read that, Jeff, I thought to myself, that portion about take mail flyers, I thought that was a pretty good idea, especially in a concentrated area of a lot of renters.
Well, and a lot of traffic.
A lot of traffic.
Right,
Down on the other end of Laurel Street where the community service building is, there's a lot of traffic there during the day.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of came up out of the blue, even for me. Happened while I went to lunch and came back and couldn't get back to work because they had the street blocked off.
Are you complaining or bragging?
No, I'm just saying, it was very spur of the moment, and I don't know why nobody had any idea it was going to happen.
Because
that actually isn't true.
No.
Every single property owner knew.
I'm not a property owner.
We
I
did a call.
understand, but you
have an
can't
office.
notify everybody.
Yeah.
We did get a call from somebody at the county that asked a few more questions about the chip seal project, when it was going to be, and some details on it. So
They didn't notify their tenants.
no,
Correct? Their employees.
All right.
And that, I don't know how you're going to win that.
I don't know either.
It certainly didn't help that we missed a day.
Yep.
And then again, now I see some of the stripes looked at the
Yes,
road.
they did the center line work,
Yep.
but they haven't done parking stalls. They haven't done crosswalks and the pavement messages, the arrows, and that type of thing.
Looks like they did a good job, but I'm not a chip seal expert. We'd have to ask Chip.
Honest gosh, my last name isn't Seal. It would just get way too confusing for me.
I believe the Safety of Public Works has that ability to change it. But look, yes, no, are we happy
I
with
think
what-
it is really. I think it held very well. It looks like the asphalt that we put down, the design I think worked very well. The aggregates holding, and it looks like it. I think it's going to should hold well through the snowplow season. So
I just had one complaint, and that was Cindy Roush from Totally Kids. And
Okay.
I went there Sunday morning because on Saturday they were tracking tar in her. And she's probably watching right now, and I just said I would mention it. But she was she didn't really know how long this would take. Somebody had told her that the tar is going to be loose like that forever. And I said, no.
Oh,
So
no.
If you can let people know that how soon that sets up.
Yep. Well, it should be pretty.
It was. I went out there today and met with her, and it was pretty set up, you know.
Yeah, it
and
seemed
I was
like it
showing
was
her.
pretty
There was some loose rocks that she pointed to me, and I said, "You're going to sweep on Wednesdays, you know, like you normally do, and that'll pick that up."
the contractor did a real good job of sweeping this year, but again, on that it was probably that Friday morning. We tried to sweep downtown, and there were a few vehicles parked there, so they could only sweep what they could get. But so when we're in there Wednesday mornings, we should be able to pick up the rest of it.
And they did the trail or something to the trail?
Yeah, we also did a fog seal on the trails.
Okay.
So keeping in mind that we've got all kinds of pavements that we're maintaining, and the trails and
Maintaining
parking
the
lots are part of that.
Okay, is there any other question or anything anybody
No.
thinks? Okay. And if you were inconvenienced to the public by the chip seal project, we're sorry.
Yep.
I mean, contractor was off by a day and that goofed up. Lots of property owners, including Crow Wing County, didn't notify their employees. Sorry. You know, what else can you say?
Yeah, and this year we did hit a lot of our major streets too. It was just time. We needed to do streets like downtown, of course, 8th Street, Laurel
Right,
Street.
all the busy ones.
So they were the busier roads in the commercial districts. So it was a little bit more of a challenge, and probably a little bit more a little bit more of a nuisance for adjacent property owners than what
Sure.
we would normally experience.
Sure. Just like snowfall is.
Yep.
All right, item 4, project turf establishment. Again, Mr. Engineer, we've had some complaints around the city, and particularly around the Garfield project and the Safe Routes to School project on boulevard seating. Anything you want to add to your memo?
The contractor did did a late season seeding last year, reseeded again around the 1st of June. We know that there's weeds coming up there. There are some areas on the Safe Routes project where we're not getting our 70% coverage at all. So the contractor is going to get in there and reseed those, try to break up the dirt a little bit and reseed them. But that's, I think, a list of probably about 6 or 8 properties where we have the large bare patches. Most of them are green. Yeah, there's weeds in there. I just don't know how we get around that. Within our contract, we did not have a bid item for weed spraying. Typically, weed spraying is required if it's noxious weeds, as defined by the Department of Agriculture, and that's not the type of weeds that we're dealing with. So that is, it's something that we could probably take a look at for future contracts. But the more we, I guess historically, as we've been seeding, we really haven't run into this particular issue with having that many weeds. And on some of these boulevards too, I'm looking at them and thinking, well, there's a high percentage of grass. There are weeds growing there, but there is a pretty good grass establishment also. So it's it gets to be kind of a regular yard maintenance issue for a property owner.
Any questions?
Nope.
The only comments, just to reiterate, there's about 6 to 8 properties that we are going back out to. If you don't know if you're, and this is really more for the public, if you don't know if you're one of them, please call our engineering department, 828-2309, and see if you're on that list, and if you're not and think you should. The other thing, 2 other things, we talked about this prior to, and I want to mention it again. The turf restoration gets the ball rolling. You have to take a little responsibility yourself, as I do, as Chip does, to mow it, to water it, to fertilize it, to weed it, and I mean we follow the USDA spec, or is it?
Yeah, it's a MnDOT spec.
Yeah, it's a MnDOT spec, and it's minimal. I don't know how to say it. I've seen the results, and I don't know how to say that, but if you give us some idea, if I wanted fairway quality boulevard turf restoration with a 5-year guarantee, what would that cost the citizen?
More than the road.
More than the road, right? And so we try and the key that we try and balance, and we try and make it the best we can. And I know every single council member up here, and it seems like poor Gary gets his share of it. It's our job. Call us if you think you've been wrong, and we can't guarantee we'll fix it, but we'll do our best to hear. And like I said, we'll start out with 6 to 8 houses, and hopefully get at least something going. And then from there, you have to take it. You being the property owner. Okay.
Well put.
Thank you. I'll repeat that again, because it seems like we hear this on every project, and we do, because to do what some people expect, it would be astronomical, and so we all have to kind of work together. So next up, Mr. Oscarden, you've got us on for hazardous and disrepair signs. Anything you want to add to what your memo says?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was brought up at the last City Council meeting. I believe it was during discussion during the regular agenda. And there was a question of what we do with a sign that's in disrepair. And you asked that we take a look at this and put it on the next agenda. In talking this over between the planning department and the engineering department, when it comes to a hazardous condition, a hazardous sign, we've got the building code that we can lean on in terms of correcting a hazard. I mean, something that could be an imminent danger to public health, safety, welfare. But when it comes to a sign that's in disrepair, which is different than a hazardous sign, we really have nothing. Other than a hazardous sign then is a zoning ordinance issue. And there is no definition in the zoning ordinance what a hazardous sign is, other than we do make some reference to the city reserves the right to require the removal at the owner's expense if a sign is not properly maintained or falls into a state of disrepair. We say that, but we don't define it. That's maybe some of the not so good news. What I think is the good news is when you go around town, I think, you know, you drive the two major corridors, Highway 210, South 6th Street, even up on Mill. You get off in some of the back areas. I don't see a lot of signs in disrepair, if there's really much of any. But nonetheless, if we ever came to the situation of being challenged, if that sign is in disrepair and it needs to be fixed, we have no definition by which to fall back on what disrepair is. So I guess we're at the point where, since this is a zoning ordinance issue, and if the council feels uncomfortable with being left open without this disrepair definition, it would be, I would recommend, referred to the Planning Commission for a zoning ordinance review and text amendment to provide some kind of a definition. And then this comes back to the City Council with its recommendation later on this late summer or early fall.
That's your recommendation, is you'd like to see a definition.
No, if the council's uncomfortable.
You understand, I wanted that clarified, that Mr. Oscar wasn't looking for something. And I don't mean to put it glibly, but
Right.
we're running into this on as we come up to the right-of-way signs.
Right.
We dig ourselves a hole.
Right.
So, any questions or thoughts as to what Mr. Oscar has asked?
Well, I would just say, I think we keep entering into these circles of an item gets brought to our attention, and then we direct more, and then we direct again, and then we have to take action, and these circles aren't necessarily even situations where we had an issue at hand before the situation came to our attention. I'm okay with disrepair definition from the dictionary if the question came, because clearly Webster and a number of other entities have defined that word to an extent that could be acceptable to us without our having to take it to the planning commission and go through all of the steps that takes. It, you know, the wording already says disrepair. A reasonable person would look to what the dictionary says disrepair is if they question what disrepair is. I think that putting extra work into this isn't necessary.
Yep, I agree, by the way, with everything you said.
But you don't have.
But you don't have to.
I agree too. I think that's a good solution, except that when Webster defined disrepair, he didn't have signs in mind, and you're specifically looking at like if letters are falling off, and instead of saying something, it says something else, and it's just looking tacky. It might not be a big deal, you know, in the bigger picture, but when people drive through, they get the feel of a community by its signs and by its architecture. And so, because I know Mark doesn't really have that much to do anymore, I was thinking that maybe we should challenge him with trying to come up with a little more you know, what does disrepair mean? But the problem with it is such a relative term.
And he's already pointed out that there's not really any situation in existence right now
Right now.
that would fall into that category. So,
So we just,
will there be a situation in 5 years? Maybe.
so maybe we save all of our energy for the right of way.
I'm willing to let this one go. Mr. Osgarden?
Just real quickly, don't want to, there's another term that's used in this zoning ordinance sentence, in addition to disrepair, the term, the phrase properly maintained. Now that stretches it, because maintenance can also fall into chipping and peeling paint, faded lettering that's difficult for motorists to read, causing a safety problem. So maintenance kind of stretches this thing out a little bit.
It does. From I presume these signs that talk are business signs. If I might share another perspective, this will probably make sense to you, and I know Chip's experience, and I know Gary's experience. There's probably no greater single advertising business increase than the signage. Just to get them up in the air costs a ton of dough, and you can't do it off the stepladder. These are big, heavy, mounted in concrete things, and nobody wants the coolest sign on the planet other than the business owner. They don't want the junky sign with the letter. But sometimes, financially, I asked TJ, who owns the log cabin, what would it cost to get that neon up back up on that wagon? And he had wondered himself and had asked. And I don't mean to pick on the wagon wheel. I know we've got new owners. I know we're working towards making their business better with the outside seating. But he told me, and I apologize, I don't remember the number, but it was astronomical to build to rebuild that. And so they're kind of thinking about it. Now I know TG doesn't know; they're it's new owners, but there's some hesitation, financial reluctance. Anyway, so and I think we all look at that and can say, "Wow, I bet you that was cool in its day," and I bet it was. Maybe someday, yeah, and I hope it would be. That's kind of a cool retro thing. So now maybe you remember a huge. What's coming down, the building is Royal Tire, and had that Matheson name on top in red neon. And for year after year after year, and it went the whole length of the building. And finally, it just required so much maintenance. Well, and of course, the Matheson disappeared when Royal bought it, but it just became too much to redo that. And so it disappeared. So just being cool doesn't necessarily something to keep. I agree with Sue. I don't think that we should turn this to the planning board. And if it becomes an issue, it seems like a lot of these issues, my neighbor doesn't, is one that comes up often. So I'll use that one. So we don't pick on it. A lot of that can be solved within the neighborhood of saying, hey, Oscar, mow your lawn. The neighbors, and have the neighbor, I mean, that seems like you've got a sign that looks like you know what. You'll find out if there's a desire or a will and it's just a financial issue, or if there's some statement being made or something. But it seems like the more, and living on the north side, is we're starting to see a resurgence of homes, rental and single family, getting rejuvenated. With pride, it seems to be contagious. So anyway, I think Chip has told us that a number of times in a number of different ways. All right, we're not going to do anything. If the council wants to, we're going to move on because we've got to be done by 7:15. Sign definitions. Here we go. Chapter 800, code. This is on the right-of-way signage. Mr. Oscar, anything you want to add? You clarified a lot of stuff for me today. I know what Ms. Sue Hilgard's going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have for the committee is, do you understand the implications of, or understand the issues associated with this right-of-way sign discussion?
Yes.
Do you understand what all of the ramifications are of this? Because you've got to be able to do that if we're going to move forward. And there are many of them in trying to craft this language, if we're going to have language that's going to allow signs, because so many scenarios are created when you start putting limitations on what can be in the right of way in terms of size, location, the manner. For example, if you limit a sign in the right of way to 6 square feet, and you say it can only be in the right of way for 10 days, well, that automatically means that real estate signs are not allowed. Okay? If you say, well, that sign can be up for 30 days in the right of way, any sign can be up for 30 days in the right of way, that means I can have garage sale signs can be out 30 days at the street corner before the garage sale. If we say signs can only be 2 square feet, it probably eliminates all the race for the cure signs.
That's a hazard, too.
So
Or you could be-
whenever you try to put some limits on time, place, and manner, there's a whole smorgasbord of users of signs out there that could be affected by that time, place, and manner. Some more with more difficulty than others. Do you see the conundrum?
I do, absolutely. I haven't even got to the conundrum of enforcement yet, which you and I talked a little bit about email today, which I think is a good idea. Mr. Morgenhagen, you had your hand up, and
I just, I'll never understand all the complexities of what we're talking about.
Okay.
Only you can, because this is what you do.
Yeah.
You live it every day. But if we constricted, for example, if we could somehow craft the wording to say that a business can have a 2 by 3 or 4 foot sign in front of their business during the day, but has to be gone by 6 o'clock, then and the enforcement thing is really what I appreciate a lot. You know, if I'm one of the officers driving around, the last thing I want to think about is, okay, now let me check my records to see how long that sign has been up. But if the sign is for the business, in front of the business, during the day only, does that restrict enough to be able to allow what I think we all would like to see and still make enforcement relatively doable? I find it really unfortunate that all this is coming about because of one business, the Vintage whatever, who have plastered their... Previous to that, it really hasn't been that big of it.
Well, finally did bring it to a head, that's for sure.
Yep.
Now, here's what you got to understand with regard to that scenario. You are singling out a class of use, business. If
Not necessarily.
If
no.
you say a sign for a use downtown or a use on Washington Street has to come off the street at night by 6 p.m., we cannot let somebody else have their sign out in the right-of-way past 6 p.m. Because they're being treated differently. Every sign in the right-of-way has to be treated the same, period. Coming time, place, and manner.
Mark, if you, to expound on what Chip said, if you remove the word business, Chip, and just said adjacent property owner. So if a church wants to do it, as long as they do it in the right of way that abuts the church, so be it. If the Iron Rail wants to put out a sandwich board sign
Yep,
in the right of way,
yep. Good.
rather than say business,
Okay.
you understand what I'm saying?
A
If you
sign.
just said anybody can put a sign in the right of way adjacent to the property they own during the hours of period. And I'm just throwing that out there. I'm trying to simplify it, Mr. Osgarden. We're having 5 minutes of open discussion. Let's
Unenforceable.
unenforceable.
Right.
Well, we don't enforce the ordinance now, so why change it?
Well, it
'Cause
can,
now you can do
the
whatever you
ordinance
want.
now can be enforced practically, for all practical purposes, it can be enforced. But as soon as you start asking the overnight shift to be responsible for the signs, it's unenforceable, unless they're, it makes it 10 times more difficult to enforce.
Well, the other thing is, Mr. Osborne, I'll argue that the rules are, and you could conceivably pick them up. I can see the sign. You know what?
Yeah.
It's really not the person that leaves it out overnight anyway, is it? It's the person who leaves it out for whatever. Aren't those the people, the chronic offenders that we're going to really
Sure.
on? And Chip brought up a name, and I don't want to repeat it, but those are the people that and theoretically we could let anything go with it. Whatever content you want, if you want to write it in crayon, and we've seen some crappy signs, it makes you look bad. If you showed us a couple of examples right here from our own community, and I think we all looked at the one and went, ooh, this looks nice. We want to come up with a way to allow this. That makes me want to go in and have whatever it is that they're doing. And I have a particular affection for, the people downtown and knowing how hard they work, and I'm not going to take it. But I want to support the people that are our community, the ones we're responsible. And
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
So then why don't we look at the other option that was brought forward in the email? Signs are allowed provided. No sign is larger than X. X signs per lot, street frontage. No sign closer than X to a corner. And the scenario has no time limit. And let the peer pressure of your neighbors pull down that garage sale sign. The majority of people take their sign down because they don't want people coming to their house after their sale is over. I mean, and that's,
I think you need a
Yeah.
time limit, even if it's ridiculous, for the people who don't have it.
But then we're in the place where we're impeding commerce, and a real estate sign on a corner that points you toward a house for sale, those don't bother. I mean, they really don't, and they're meant to promote that particular point of commerce, and they have to come down in X amount of time. How do you measure whether that sign, that little red arrow was up 10 days for this house, then they took it down and it went up 10 more days for another house down the same? I mean, putting those kinds of enforcement issues onto staff to either keep track of, like you said, pull the car over, put the four-way on, pick the sign up, put it in the car, take it out, unload. I mean, that just is, it lacks practicality, and the alternative suggestion that you made is doable. It makes our community business friendly, and it puts some parameters around it so that you don't have a 10-foot sign right away, for example.
I don't think there's going to be a way to craft a perfect scenario.
Oh, I agree.
Because come election season, for those few weeks, you can only support one candidate. You can't support 5 candidates.
And there again, that takes away the freedom of speech. It takes, I mean, there's
One
just
side.
so many things
One side.
that I'm just so opposed to.
That
in
isn't
this,
true
you know,
at all.
that-
In the right of way. Yes,
In the
with-
right of way.
In
Correct,
the
but
right
I
of
can
way.
support
Yard.
1,000 candidates.
In the right, in the yard.
Yeah,
But,
which is
but-
kind of where
but-
I think a lot of candidates really did a good
Want
job
that
in the
freedom.
last.
But if that's the route the council wants, that's probably the most basic structure we could create.
It's the friendliest.
Hi, Mark.
It's the friendliest means that I can see, that I could support.
It's simple.
None.
Can I just, so we're talking a size and a location.
And a limit to the number in that scenario that he presented us.
And a limit to the number.
And I'm okay with or without that limit.
I'm going to throw it out
But
there
I
to
say-
the. We'll
I
throw it
say-
out to the council tonight, in that we're trying to keep this alive.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing? Will you support something as far as, and maybe it's in here, Mr. Oscar, impedance to driving. You've
Yeah.
got the from the court.
That's what it was meant
Yeah,
for.
there
the
was.
visibility, yep.
Is that would be part of the location?
Then X to a corner, one you suggested, in order to keep.
So we can keep this going for 2 more weeks and just fill out these things that we've discussed. You're simplifying it, which I like.
Yeah, and I would like some input then maybe about that corner sign from Gary or from other people that are in the real estate business to know if that really is a deal breaker.
The 2 feet or some size limitation will help that on its own.
Right.
Because I've got one on my property. It's a real estate sign. I wish the guy would have asked, but I happen to know the property owner. So it's an arrow. It's this big. I've got children in my household that will use that as an excuse to crash into everything. But truth be told, you almost have to drive. You'd almost have to drive over it. So for it
To
to impede.
I would say.
Chip, do you see where we're going with this? At least carrying it rather than kill it. And we all read Patrick, our city administrator, wrote us a memo saying suggesting that we follow county and state, if nothing else, which would be no right of way signs. pretty much. If nothing else, for simplification, which contradicts what we're talking about. But it does simplify it. It may not simplify enforcement. I couldn't imagine what would happen as we went and picked up. We'd send the attorney out.
On Mondays before 6 o'clock.
Chip, we got to move. We got 5 minutes. You got anything else to say? I think I know what I want to do, but I don't want to do something. I want to keep it going until and enlighten the council as to what we're talking about, and that's it. And do it again. Maybe we need to spend 5 minutes with Mr. Oscar on our, have a little deal on this, and we need to put something out there.
What I read, what stuck out to me is the Planning and Engineering Department's recommendation that the city of Brainerd continue prohibiting any right-of-way signs, period.
And that's a change from what we've been hearing.
Right, and it's very draconian. Finally, I get to use that word.
That's a good word.
Thank
It is
you.
a good
Yeah.
word. There's something in
But
there.
you know what? With all the minutia involved with figuring this out, maybe it's time that we just say, there it is. Sorry, this one business that started all of this. Go talk to them about it because they're the ones that messed it up for everybody else.
We certainly could do that. I'm suggesting, taking lead from my conscience here, that I wouldn't support that. And I think that's certainly an easy way out. But I will give you a contradiction. I know Mr. Oscarden wants to talk. But
No,
we got to be done
I'm
in
good.
2 minutes.
No more.
But if we got one more item on the agenda. But I think we're overcomplicating it. And kind of like what I heard from Alderwoman Hilgard, simplifying this. Other thing is, there's absolutely nothing wrong was saying, we're gonna make this effort. This isn't, we're not talking about New York City here, it's Brainerd. And truth be told, we're not talking that many different people, especially once you eliminate certain quantities of signs. And I'm not gonna name any of them, because we all know what they are. The ones that pop up like weeds forever, campaign signs, and disappear. But there's a number of those that do that. Really, we're trying to control a small number. And allow, and not only control might be the wrong word, regulate, but in a positive way, to allow for it. So, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna give the council an update as to where we're at. Expect to have an ordinance ready hopefully within 2 weeks. Some of the discussion we've had, including Chip's comments, which I think are very valid, especially when it comes to enforcement. I think enforcement's going to be tough, but some of that is like trying to say it's really tough to get rid of speeders. So, Mr. Engineer, you asked for an RFP report. That would be request for proposals on the water tower.
Okay, staff has prepared this request for proposals. This is related to the $10,000 grant that the city of Brainerd was successful in getting last spring for the develop a historic structure report and roof design for the historic water tower. So we prepared the RFP. I crossed out the dates, but we would ask that the proposals be returned probably about August 19th. Then staff would review the proposals and have a recommendation for the council at the meeting on September 8th for bringing a consultant on board to move forward with that process.
One quick question, Mr. Engineer.
Yes, sir.
Is this, do we have a dollar figure? I know we got a $10,000.
We got a $10,000 grant, so no, we don't have a dollar figure yet until we actually get the proposals back.
So what you want is that the city of Brainerd has secured a grant. You
What?
don't want the cash amount
No,
in the...
no, I don't want, I'm not going to put the
Okay.
cash amount in there. So basically, the action requested this evening is just to authorize distribution of the RFP.
Okay. So, any questions?
Just why is 10,000?
Because
they
we
don't
don't want to
wanna-
give away what
Because
we
they
have.
might make an estimate to do
Gotcha.
it for 8,000,
Yep.
and we'd have
Got
$2
it,
grand
got
over.
it,
left
got
over.
If they're watching TV, the water tower people don't know.
They'll know.
Is that a motion to approve the sending out of the request for proposals?
How did you know?
I
I'll
thought,
second it.
I gleaned it.
Wow.
I've shared a little kombucha.
I-
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.